What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Keep It Hoop YouTube channel. Last night, I'm sure all of you guys saw the Bucks finally winning their first championship in 40 years. Giannis with an insane game, 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks in a clinching game. One of the best, if not best, clinching games in the finals we've ever seen. You had Chris Middleton chipping in 17 points, Bobby Portis with 16 off the bench, Jrue Holiday playing great defense again, and it was just really good to see. I don't think I can remember a time being this happy seeing someone win since I saw Kobe win his first ring without Shaq. I was a huge Kobe fan, and the narrative around him was that he couldn't win without Shaq. And to see him winning against Orlando and conquering that and kind of getting that narrative out of the way, super happy back then. But yeah, ever since then, I haven't really had any finals where I was super emotionally attached to one player or one team. But to see Giannis, who, knowing his backstory and coming from nothing and just playing basketball to keep his family afloat. We saw him coming in as someone who wasn't even a highly touted player coming into the draft. Super skinny and, very raw talent. Work hard on his craft and just enjoying the game. Being super passionate about being a basketball player, being in Milwaukee, and being a competitor and trying to do things the right way. Obviously had the opportunity to leave Milwaukee and either join or create or start a super team. And just kind of following through on his promise of trying to win and bring a championship back to Milwaukee, right? And to see and go through all of that the last few years and knowing, again, everything he went through, to see him finally get a ring, I don't think it could have happened a nicer guy in the league, and very well deserved, right? I was just super happy for him and the Milwaukee fans. We saw them be super loud, super passionate, and great fans throughout these playoffs, and guys like Chris Middleton who stepped up. I've been critical of Chris Middleton in the past, but to his credit, stepped up, has some really big games in these playoffs, has some really big shots. Jrue Holiday, I was also very critical of him, especially in games 1 and 2 this series. He didn't play great offensively for the whole series, but definitely had a couple good offensive games. And besides that, his defense, his calling card, was just elite defensively when guarding Chris Paul. Bothered Devin Booker for a game as well. You have PJ Tucker, who really sacrificed his body and went through a lot of nicks and bruises when he was playing in Houston, having to be a 6'5" center at times when they played small. And then coming to Milwaukee after he looked kind of washed and, out of it earlier this season when he was still in Houston. Took some time to get things going in Milwaukee, but really just, that fight, that battle. I think him, along with Bobby Portis and Jrue Holiday, they were huge in Milwaukee's not only on-court performance, but being a lot more mentally tough and resilient and mature this year. I think that the one thing with the Bucks in the past was that they kind of folded under pressure. Again, not as strong mentally. And this year you have multiple veterans coming in, guys who are super tough. And that mindset, I think, was very contagious to this whole team. Granted, I'm sure guys like Giannis and Chris Middleton, guys who've been here, in the past, they've improved on that end as well. But it helps when you bring in these kind of guys who are fighters and just never give up kind of guys, and that definitely helped. And the cool thing with PJ is that he beat a lot of his teammates on the way here, right? In the first round against Miami, he beat Trevor Ariza. Then in the Brooklyn series, he beat James Harden. Then in Atlanta, he was going up against Clint Capella, right? And then now he beats Chris Paul, who he played with also. So, every round he's playing someone that he played with in Houston, and he comes out on top with the ring. Super happy for him. Well-deserved as well. Brook Lopez, another guy who's been in the league a long time, bounced around between Brooklyn, Los Angeles, kind of found a home here in Milwaukee. Another guy I was critical of at the beginning of the season when Milwaukee was being kind of inconsistent. I thought his rim protection had diminished. I thought that he was playing too much on the perimeter and not really taking advantage of his size. And there were times where he got taken kind of out of the series or just, used as a mismatch during certain times during these playoffs because of his size and speed, but still came up big at times. Had a huge game. I think what was it, 6 against Atlanta. So yeah, big games for, maybe it was game 5, but yeah, big games for him at times, and obviously a big part of what they've done in Milwaukee the last few years. And I'm not naming everyone obviously, but happy to see a lot of those guys. Bobby Portis, Knicks legend. I was really happy to see him. He was really solid for the Knicks, but everything that he's gone through, from the punching incident he had in Chicago to having to play for the Knicks, right? That's a low point in your career for some people, at least before this year. And then coming over to Milwaukee, kind of reshaping his game, working hard on his craft, getting himself out of that deep, dark place that he said he was in mentally, and then sacrificing a lot of his shots and playing time to now being a champion, right? And that's, again, something he talked about, something that nobody can ever take away from him going forward. So really happy for these guys, well-deserved. But you also have to look at it on the other end, right? Phoenix, they had a great run. And, there's a lot of, and these whole playoffs, people are going to talk about the injuries and whatnot. And I get that. If you want to put an asterisk next to it, I think it's dumb. I don't think that these finals or these playoffs are the same as other playoffs, but that doesn't mean that the ring that the Milwaukee Bucks won, or the Suns, or the run that the Suns went on is, not impressive. Are there more impressive runs or more impressive championships? Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, they play who's in front of them, and it's still not easy. You still have to go out there, execute, fight, battle, put in the work, prepare, and they did that, right? Both of these teams did that. One team just came out ahead. I feel for Monty Williams probably the most, actually, to be honest. There's obviously the Chris Paul narrative and storyline, which I'm going to go into in a little bit, but Monty Williams, who was a former player, ended up being on the Spurs coaching staff at one point, and then going on to coach Chris Paul for a year, and then coaching on the Hornets for I think 5 years. Ended up then taking some time as the Oklahoma City assistant coach job, and then that's when his wife sadly passed, and he took some time away from the game. And then he ended up coming back into the coaching scene, taking, I think, an assistant coaching job under Brett Brown in Philadelphia, then getting this Phoenix Suns job. And, he talked about when he took the job how he wanted to create a culture and, really raise the floor that is Suns basketball. Because at the time, they were a franchise that had a lot of success in the past, but that had kind of missed out on the playoffs for a few years, and we're kind of just in no man's land. And he's not only turned this team into a competitor, but really built a culture, and he's really embraced and driven home the fact that he wants his players to be grateful for the moment and really just take it all in, right? Because as I'm sure Monty Williams has told his players all the time, all of this can be taken away in a heartbeat, right? In a second. So I think that if you're able to send a message like that, and you have not just a coach, but a person, a man like Monty Williams coaching you, you love playing for a guy like that, because he's supportive. He's going to be honest with you, but, very disciplined coach, but still always there for you, wants the best for you. But he also understands that this is just a game, and at the end of the day, life is more than basketball. And you look at guys like Devin Booker, Chris Paul, who had his run-ins and disagreements with Monty Williams when they first played together, and you have guys like Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton all gleaming and talking so highly of Monty Williams and what he's meant for their lives and careers. And so seeing him, I wanted him to win it. I really did. Like, I wanted Giannis and the Bucks to win it, but, if I think Monty Williams deserved it as much as anybody else. Because I think, no offense to Mike Budenholzer, who I've been critical of as well, I don't think the best coach in the series won. I think Monty Williams is a better X's and O's coach. I think he's a better motivator. I think he's a better kind of player manager. I just think overall he's a better coach. And Budenholzer, to his credit, I think coached better than he had in the past. I think he made more adjustments, or at least did so a bit more quickly and timely than he had in the past, which is one of my biggest complaints with Budenholzer. I think that Bud sometimes gets too stubborn or trusts his guys or his schemes a bit too much, and there are times where his play calling, his strategy, his schemes are a bit too predictable, and I think Milwaukee at times in the past has really struggled because of that, especially in the playoffs. But I think, he's had I would say he's had trouble maximizing the talent he has on his team or being more creative. I think that that's something Monty Williams is good at. Am I saying Monty Williams is the best coach in the league? No, right? But I would take Monty Williams over Bud in a heartbeat probably. And it's crazy because Bud was probably looking at the possibility of getting fired if, they lose to Brooklyn. I really do think that he was in the hot seat, and that if they lost against Brooklyn, which still was, very close, right? People forget that Kevin Durant was probably half an inch away, maybe an inch away from beating Milwaukee with that three where his foot was on the line. If that's the case, they probably end up beating Atlanta, and I think they still beat Phoenix as well. And you're looking at a whole different timeline, a whole different storyline where maybe not today, maybe it only goes 4 or 5 games, but, we're talking about Kevin Durant winning another ring, James Harden finally getting a ring, Kyrie getting another one, and guys like Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan winning rings, right? So, I'm not going to go into that timeline too much, but really, it's crazy how really every inch matters, right? And, if that happens, then again, I do think Budenholzer ends up getting fired, but Durant's foot is on the line. That ends up being a 2. Milwaukee wins that series and then beats Atlanta, beats Phoenix. We all know the rest, right? But, I feel bad for Monty Williams. Chris Paul, the memes and jokes are always going to be there about him not being able to win when he's up 2-0 in a playoff series. I think he's now tied for the most playoff series lost after starting the series up 2-0. He is now tied with former teammate Blake Griffin. And, it's unfortunate, right? Because Chris played well this series for the most part. He had a bad Game 5, a really bad one. And besides that, though, I think he played fine, especially in Game 6. He played really well. It was Devin Booker that struggled. And, could he have played better? Could he have shot more, been a bit more aggressive, cut down on the turnovers in Game 5? 100%. He didn't play perfect, wasn't elite, but, I think he played pretty well. And it's unfortunate, right, because we just don't know when or if either of these teams will even be back, or how many of these guys are ever going to get a taste of finals basketball again. You have a lot of guys in the NBA or former players who talk about getting to the finals in their first year or first few years and then never being able to make it back. And really, when you get there, and obviously Chris has played for a really long time, so he doesn't fall under that category of making it there when he's young and kind of taking it for granted. But it's hard. It's hard getting to the playoffs. It's hard getting into the finals, and it's hard winning it. And, there's a lot of question marks in the air for Chris and the Suns in general. We don't know if this team is going to be constructed the same way next year. Chris Paul can opt out of the final year of his contract and either ask for a longer extension / contract with Phoenix, or he could look elsewhere. Miami's been interested. The Lakers are always going to be rumored with LeBron and kind of I think it's just the nature of the Lakers, right? Whenever a star wants out, regardless of how few assets the Lakers have, they're going to be linked to the Lakers. I know the Knicks are linked there as well. You have the connection with him and Leon Rose. And then for the Suns, the rest of the team, right? Ayton and Mikal Bridges are both eligible for extensions this summer. Ayton has played himself into a max contract, had a great run. He's someone who I've become a huge fan of, who came into the league as a guy who was more of an ISO, back to the basket player, played very little defense, and this year really transformed into his game, and really sacrificed a lot of his shots. Ended up playing more as just a pick and roll guy and attacking the boards defensively and offensively and getting his points through hustling and the offense run through Chris and Book, which isn't always fun or easy for young bigs, especially one that's as talented and was as highly touted and recruited as Ayton, right? You want to come into the league, you want to get your numbers, you want to be a dominant guy, set records and do all those kinds of things, but he took a back seat to the two ball handlers and really helped the team, just for the better of the team, and they won, right? But his play in the playoffs really just being super efficient, using his size, being physically dominant for a lot of these games, probably besides the series against Milwaukee, and just being, great at what he does. He's definitely gonna get a max contract, and Mikal Bridges is gonna get a really big contract as well, and probably not a max, but just short of that. His skill set, his wingspan, his defense, his shooting, and his ability to even at times take guys off the dribble, pump fake, mid range, or floaters, finishing transition. All those very, again, just skill sets that teams all around the league want, and at his age, teams are going to want him. So if Phoenix wants to keep him, they're going to have to pay out a pretty big sum as well. So ideally, obviously, the Suns bring back Chris Paul, Bridges, and Ayton, and you keep, obviously, Booker's still there, and you still have the core. But it's not going to be easy. It's a lot of money, and it still also hinges on what Chris Paul is going to do. And even then, right, again, going back to kind of everything that's happened in the playoffs in terms of injuries, the West is wide open, and that's both good and bad for the Suns because, again, we saw that anything can happen. Is there a chance that they make it back to the finals? Yeah, but it's only going to get more tough next year, right? And so whoever lost it this year, which was Phoenix, was going to know that they missed out on a great opportunity. And you miss out on a good opportunity regardless of, the year, right? If you get to the finals and you lose, you feel like you missed out on a great opportunity, but it's different than other years because let's say you look at a team like Cleveland in all those years where they went to the finals and lost to Golden State. Granted, they won one, but they lost when they lost. I'm sure they were like, oh, it's an opportunity missed and it's unfortunate. But for the most part, they knew that they would at least get to the conference finals, if not make it back to the finals. And there were other teams like that. And for Phoenix, again, they were a good regular season team. They had a good run. And it's not to say that there's 0% chance that they make it back next year, but it's going to be way tougher, right? You have to assume that the Lakers are going to be healthier. And if so, they can very easily beat the Phoenix Suns in a 7-game series. The Clippers, if they're healthy, they can beat the Suns. You have teams like the Nuggets who are also going to be healthier. They can beat the Suns, and then other teams that still have a chance, right? You have the Dallas Mavericks, you have the Utah Jazz. So the West isn't easy. And for the Eastern side, right, you also have, if Brooklyn was healthy, you have that as well. So it's not like Milwaukee has an easy route to get a repeat or even get back to the finals next year. So this is a year where, again, I talked earlier about not putting an asterisk or anything, but there was, I think, an extra sense of urgency because you understood that both teams had a golden opportunity right there when, it's not going to be easy coming back, right? It's not like, again, the Warriors and the Cavs where next year we're most likely looking at a repeat matchup of the finals. If everyone comes back healthy as they should, it's going to be really rough for both of these teams to make it back for these finals. And Milwaukee has a better chance just because there's fewer elite teams in the East, right? In the West, again, the Lakers, Clippers, and Nuggets all have a good chance to make it to the finals. In the East, Milwaukee's probably only looking at Brooklyn, so they have a chance to get back here. But again, Brooklyn was the favorites going into the season. They were the favorites going into that series, and it's going to be the same exact thing going into next year. So, but again, happy for Milwaukee, and now we're before I finish though, I do want to talk a little bit about Devin Booker. Okay, so I want to preface what I'm going to say by saying that I'm a Devin Booker fan, and I've been one pretty much since his rookie year. I love his game. When I was trying to play professionally and working out every day, doing drills, he's one of those guys I watched a lot of film of. I think his offensive game is just super smooth. Are there things he can work on? I talked about his explosiveness, his shot selection at times. Yes, 100%. But, again, a big fan, and I think he's really good. There were times when a lot of people thought that he was just an empty stat sheet stuffer on a bad team, and I was convinced and pretty confident that he could be put in a winning situation and still put up good numbers and help a team win. And I think we saw that this year, and I don't think you can really question that anymore. Again, he still has a lot of things he can work on, and he's not an elite player. I wouldn't call him a superstar, but he's a very, very, very good player. in today's NBA. And again, I don't think you can question the fact if he's a winning player or not. That being said, my God, did he end the season playing awfully. Like, Game 6 was not pretty. And Game 5, he balled out. Insane performance. And he had a few really explosive performances throughout the playoffs. But he also had some really bad ones. Had a few really bad games against the Clippers and Pat Beverly when he was guarding him. Struggled in some of the games against Los Angeles. And again, Game 6 last night, not pretty, right? If you look at his numbers, 19 points on 8 of 22. But the big one is 0 of 7 from 3. And he missed a couple towards the end of the game when, the game was kind of over. But even if you take those away, 0 of 5 from 3, 8 of 20. And 19 points in the most important game of the season, most important game of his career. Elimination, winner go home game in the NBA Finals. You just can't have that from a guy that's supposed to be one of, if not the best players on your team. And I know he himself said that he shouldn't be compared to Kobe, but this is more so for the media guys or the fans who did try to compare him to Kobe. Right, it's not there. Right, they do have the mid-range game, and there's that personal connection of, him looking up to Kobe and Kobe giving a lot of words of wisdom and advice and kind of being a mentor to book. But other than that, the comparisons end, right? Because and I want, like, Kobe had bad games in the finals or in the playoffs or in the regular season. Obviously, he had really bad shooting nights before. I'm sure he's gone over 7 from 3 before, but they're just on a different level. And Kobe, people forget sometimes, and Booker's gotten better defensively, right? He's not a liability. He's not awful defensively, but Kobe was elite defensively for the first half of his career. People forget that. And I think that's something that Devin Booker doesn't have. Booker's had clutch moments, but I think Kobe's had a bit more, even at this point in their careers. And it's just different types of players overall. Some similarities, but right, the comparisons I think need to end. I think it was a bit of a hyperbole. And again, he himself said it as well. All right, but 19 points, 8 of 22, 0 of 7. 6 turnovers just isn't going to cut it. And again, just coming from a Devin Booker fan, I'm sure he's going to, work on his game. He's headed off to Tokyo with Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton to play in the Olympics. I'm sure that'll be a fun, interesting time. It's kind of like because I think when it was in 2016 when the Cavs won, Draymond and... was he the only one? I know Draymond was on that team, and he had to go play with Kyrie, who had just beat him. So, there's things like this happen. It's happened in the past. I'm sure that Booker's going to kind of try to compartmentalize it and then try to move on and focus on the Olympics. But it should be a good opportunity for him to continue working on his craft, play around some of the other elite guys in the league, and to kind of try to just turn a new page and start focusing on next season. Should be really fun for Chris and Jrue, who again just won the finals. They get to go to Tokyo with still a pretty good chance to win the gold medal, so make this one of the most, if not the most memorable summers of their lives. So yeah, it should be really fun for them. The thing I wanted to touch on before we move on towards the end of the episode is I think that people are overreacting to the Giannis's finals performance in one way or another, right? There are people saying that he is now a top 2 power forward of all time, or that he's, top 5, top 10 greatest ever. Could he end up there? 100%. He's had an amazing run. His list of accolades and accomplishments at his age of 26 is insane. What was it? I think 5 All-Star appearances, 2 MVPs, now a Finals and a Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year award. The accolades are insane, but, let's not forget the guys like Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Hakeem Olajuwon, who came before him, who's done insane things, right? So just want to hold off on that a little bit. Again, his performance overall in the finals, it was just inspiring. It was, amazing and entertaining to watch. His determination and will to just win, and just his ability to will his team to a victory. Super impressive. And again, I'm a Giannis fan, so it was great to watch. But I do think that people are overreacting a bit. But people are also going on the other end of kind of just trying to dumb down, again, the whole finals, the whole playoffs because of the injuries. Again, Giannis and the Bucks, and for that matter, the Suns as well, could only play who's ahead of them in the schedule to get the teams that were in front of them. They took care of business. Nothing against them. Again, this playoff run for both teams wasn't as impressive as other ones. Doesn't mean you have to go and disrespect the players or diminish what they've done or put an asterisk next to it. I think you just understand what it is in context and then move on. But I think at a certain time you also just have to just appreciate greatness. Just respect it. You don't have to love the guy. You don't have to like him. I think Giannis is a guy that's pretty hard to dislike. At least as a player or a person. You can dislike the game, right? His style isn't necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing or the most smooth or fundamental. That being said, I think it's still ridiculous what he's done. It's also funny that, right, James Harden saying that he's not skilled or talented, that he's just a big, athletic, strong guy. I don't know. To be able to do what he did at his height, pretty impressive. On both ends of the ball, mind you, something James Harden would know about. But, I don't think Giannis is really worried about that. He's sitting with the cigars, with the champagne, with the trophies, 2 trophies because he has the Finals MVP, while James Harden got a really good look at him dominating against Brooklyn from the bench when he was injured. And I'm sure he had pretty good seats to watch in the finals games as he was sitting there with his 0 rings. But yeah, so I just wanted to go over some of the things I wanted to do over the offseason now that we are in day 1 of pretty much next season. 2021 season is over with last night. The Knicks are now officially tied for first place, undefeated so far this season, so we'll take it. But yeah, going into the next week or so, we have the NBA draft next week, so I'll be going over mock drafts, team needs, positional needs, and just talking about some of the draft prospects. After that, we have free agency, so I'll do another episode or articles depending on my time and schedule, talking about where I think certain players will go, and again, kind of just talking about what every team needs. And then, we have Summer League and then the season, right? But the NBA offseason is really fun. A lot of possible movements. And, this isn't one of those crazy free agencies or free agent classes where there's multiple superstars on the move. But if anything, I think while there's less hype around it, it's also going to be interesting to see how teams and front offices can get creative with their assets, draft picks, salary cap, and to try to make their teams better, whether it's for the short term or long run. And this draft class is one that is pretty good, unlike the free agent class. Is top heavy, but at the top you do have multiple guys who can be cornerstones for their franchises. I'm sure it's no surprise or a spoiler, but Cade Cunningham most likely going first to Detroit. He's a guy that has superstar potential. A guy looked at as a point guard with size, a Ben Simmons with shooting, if you will. A little bit less elite defensively, but still a really, really good player. Jalen Suggs, my favorite player coming out of the draft, has the potential to be a franchise point guard. Evan Mobley has a little bit like a Bam Adebayo type game, a really versatile, still a little bit raw, but really versatile big with a very unique but sought after skill set. So yeah, there's multiple guys in this draft. Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga are guys who are also very, very highly touted coming out of this draft too. So very, very excited for the draft, but also to start kind of talking a bit more about them, my thoughts on them. I've done videos on pretty much all the top 5 guys. I have multiple videos on Suggs, Cunningham, I'm pretty sure, Kuminga, Mobley, and Jalen Green, all on the YouTube channel, so go check that out if you haven't yet. But yeah, please remember to follow us on social media. We are Keep It Hoop blog on Twitter and keep_it_hoop on Instagram. We'll be posting whenever we have new content out. Again, just breaking down videos, talking about whatever is going on in the NBA or will be going on in the NBA in the upcoming weeks. Again, with the draft and free agency. So yeah, stay tuned for those, and yeah, we'll see you guys again soon. Peace.